Now, another great way to layer up and create more mood is to use instruments as ambience and textures. And one way I like doing this is to use pad sounds. Now with the pad, you've got these nice long sustained sounds, and they create this very good bed that can sit under all the other instruments and layers in your production. And another thing, if you see with the production so far, we've just got some drums and a synth laying down the root of the key that we're going to be playing in and the melody line. So nothing is sort of spelling out the chords so far as a chord progression that we want to use in our composition to this video. So the pad is going to do those. It's going to create a mood, it's going to give it extra texture to the instrumentation, and it's going to give us some chords that we can use to spell out the chord progression. And hopefully these chords will enhance this lead line or melody or motif that we're using with the production without it feeling a bit empty. And seeing as this video is quite sciencey and mechanical, let's find a texture or pad sound that's going to enhance and match that. So to do this, I'm going to add an instrument track, and I'm going to use an instance of Pad Shop, which has a great selection of pad presets in it. And one that I really like is called Spherophone. So I'm going to reset the filters over here, and then in the search bar, let's type sphere. There we go, Spherophone. So just playing this. So a very nice sound. As I release, it's got a long tail, and this is going to create a nice bed that's going to follow this lead line. So the chord progression I'm going to use is starting off with the B flat, then to an A flat, then back to the B flat, and then an F sharp inversion. Very simple, but let's layer that over this chord progression. So here we go. And that's it. I'm just going to go in and maybe neaten some things up. I could, for example, select all the notes and quantize them, but I like how it swells up into the note. The only ones that I really want to correct are these first few notes. And also, maybe what will be better, just for some chord leading, instead of this being the same shape as this, I'm going to drag this down an octave. So there's an inversion, and it creates some sort of voice leading with these bass notes leading up. So taking a listen to this now. And watching the video. Before. That's working really nice, creating that bed of texture. Now, what really works well, and what you've probably been hearing me saying quite a bit, is to layer things up. So let's create an extra layer of a texture or pad sound. So I'm going to create another instance of Pad Shop. And for this, I want to use a preset called Spherical. So this one is way more mechanical sounding. You listen here. And instead of playing the 3 notes of the triad, let me just play 2 notes. So the first and fifth of the chord. Let's see if that works. To do this quickly, I'm just going to copy this part down. And I'm just going to remove these middle notes. Taking a listen now. So that's clashing a bit, but I want it to be less voiced and add some modulation effects to create more of a texture with that sound. So it's not going to be implying the chord progression as much, but more just adding some ambience. So on this track, let's move over to the mixer, and on the inserts, let's first add a chorus. For this chorus, I want to increase the width, change the syncing to half notes, dial up that low filter to filter some of that out, and then increase the mix. And after this, let's add a stereo delay. Increase these feedback amounts and the wet mix. And then apply some low filtering on the one side. Then drop this fader level, maybe to around about -12 dB. I'm just going to turn off the click. I was using that as a reference when I was recording, but I don't need that anymore. So I don't want that to get in the way. And let's hear those in isolation. So I'll solo them. Take this out. So that extra instance of pad shop there is adding some sort of wobble and movement to the sound. It's not adding to the chord progression, but giving that extra movement. So if you look at that video and you're working to it, you'll see how you can enhance the sound and how these type of textures and pads accompany it. For me, this more somber, dark sound has really worked for this video. But maybe if you're working to something else which is a bit more lighter, you might want to use other types of pads and instruments that can work with the video. Something that works pretty well across anything, if it's light or heavy, is to add in some pianos, just spelling out the chord a bit more. So I'm going to add in an instrument track and use the sampler Hellion and load up a piano patch in here. What works quite nicely is this Yamaha patch, Yamaha S90 ES piano. This is the patch. And I want to add some reverb, but this is going to be in the form of an effects track where I can send the track to the reverb. So I will go to the project and create an effects track. Let's call it reverb. On this reverb, let's add an instance of reverence, which is a nice impulse response reverb using realistic room sounds. And for here, let's use a plate. So if I browse, I can go to plate, and this one is going to work for me, plate whole time. Then, going across onto Hellion, I can go onto the sends and send this to the reverb. So we've got this. And if I arm the reverb, and I'm just going to copy this MIDI region down so it's playing the root and the first, just enhancing those chords. Now, what I just wanted to show you here is how you can use sounds that have got nice long sustains like pads and pianos, or maybe mechanical texture sounds like this, and how they create this bed that can go under your melody and your rhythm. And another important thing is to be able to isolate elements and for it to still work with the video. So what I mean by that is if I'm playing just the groove, it's working with the video. If I play the synth, it's working as well. You've got the melody line. And then you've got these pads that we've just added in. And then all together. So what's important is that you can break these sounds into the roles that they're playing within the composition, and they still work with the video, but then when you add everything together, it's enhancing the whole experience. Because later in the series, I'm going to show you how you can export out your tracks as stems and provide these to the producer so that they can maybe change the mix, because that does happen in this field. You send stems to a producer, and if they find maybe your percussion is too loud, they can bring that when they're doing the remixing of the audio to the final production. But we'll get into that a bit more later in the series. Your takeaway point for here in this video is just to see how these textures can add to your composition. Now, let me catch you in the next video where we're going to take this a step further.